Kristen, Jordan, so excited to have you both here with us today. You've known each other for some time. You've been coworkers, you've been colleagues. Gensler designed the new Marriott headquarters in Maryland, which I think is really exciting. And you both have such a great, unique take on using new tech in your creative processes. So want to level set, start off right here. What is the most interesting way each of you are using AI to delight your customers in a more experiential way? Jordan, let's start with you.
Sure, well, it's great to be here. You know, I think back to when I started in the profession 30 years ago, and I was coming in right when the industry was going from like analog to digital. And it was so transformative then, but like you fast forward now, and it is a massive wave coming in. So back then, when it was, just understanding, what does renderings and animations look like, and the movie industry was actually coming in and grabbing people that were getting the talents, and they weren't able to kind of continue in the architecture path. But now what we're finding is it's almost like full circle. What I'm most excited about is seeing the kind of storytelling animation opportunities that are coming in through AI that can take customers and clients on these incredible journeys long before a shovel hits the ground.
Excellent. And Kristen, what about you?
Yeah, so I would underscore what Jordan is saying, the transformative power that AI is having on the design process and the way that we collaborate and the way that we communicate design. And then maybe to add on to that from the hospitality perspective, at Marriott right now, we are on a journey of a complete digital tech transformation.
Okay.
So we are retiring all of our legacy systems that are kind of the backbone of our operations and hotel property management system, reservation system, our loyalty system. And we're using AI-powered and other technology to really elevate the guest experience, elevate and change the associate experience and the way that they can interact with our guests, and to elevate the opportunity for our owners and our partners to find greater revenue-generating opportunities through all that. And I think what I'm excited about in that, bringing it back to design, is that it's changing the technology, even beyond just the technology that we're using for the design process, but the technology in other spaces is changing how we're going to think about the physical spaces. What is your experience and what are your needs and expectations? If our associates are working differently, the physical spaces to support that are going to be different. And if our owners are expecting and can achieve different levels of revenue, potential and opportunity, the physical spaces need to change to enable that. So I'm excited from a process and then also the kind of product.
We'll dive into those guest spaces in a little bit, but I first want to go to something I find really fascinating is that when you picture like a traditional architect or designer, you picture like and Jordan, you've said this to me, the traditional like napkin sketch, a designer just like, really pen and paper going at it. Now the process has kind of been reimagined where it's more this like cinematographer Hollywood experience. We have a video for you all to walk us through this, but let's roll the tape on that. And then Jordan, while it's going, could you kind of explain what we're seeing here and how the designer toolkit is changing? And I think it's right over here.
Yeah, so what you're looking at, I mean, if you think about the old days of the concept sketch that starts the whole process, now we've moved into this very cinematic world. And actually, Michael Ovitz talked a little bit about this last night. So what you're seeing is a AI-based interface that we've created in our firm that allows us to think about the storytelling aspect. So in this case, you're seeing one individual who's coming and visiting a new headquarters space as a client, and the other is a first-time employee, and their journeys are kind of converging through the arc of the narrative that's being shown here. And what's cool about it is, none of this is B-roll. All the characters we're creating and we're generating the spatial experiences as well. So you're going straight to an animated experience that is taking you on a journey, early upstream in the process. And what we're finding is that with clients that we're doing this with, it takes the process to a totally different dimension, and it allows for a much more engaged, co-create process from the get-go.
Yeah. Do clients expect this now? When you come, they want like, hey, this needs to be like, I'm going to the movies, I want a Hollywood experience.
I mean, this is new stuff. For us, we started this about 6 months ago. So this is moving beyond kind of the more static AI work into much more of the storytelling side. And what we're finding is early on, when clients don't even necessarily know programmatically what they're looking for, they may have the idea of the North Star of their project, but this starts to really cement it.
Yeah.
And you can tell it really works when you're doing a new pitch or a first client meeting, and you look out and you see people in the crowd that actually have tears in their eyes because they're connecting with the story.
Right, right. Kristen, are you using any of this tech at Marriott, or is there any interesting new things you have in your toolkit that you're using?
Well, so when we're looking at whether it's evolving a brand or working specifically on a project, this is the type of thing that now we're exploring with firms like Gensler. So the ability to, like I mentioned in the first comment, to communicate differently, to collaborate differently, we can get to a sort of agreement and an understanding so much faster and with so much clear alignment. And in the work that we do, Jordan is kind of one person at the table. I'm there as a brand, but we are working with we have an owner, we might have an operator. You have a lot of people who have to understand what you are doing, and they're coming from kind of different levels of understanding. And design, the language of design, isn't necessarily one that people are speaking every day or engaged in every day. And so these tools are something very valuable for us to kind of place design at a very strategic position in the overall business, and to be able to kind of harness and show people the value from their perspective. So that was a workplace, but you could imagine doing something similar and looking at, from the operational side, the associate side of a hotel experience, the guest side of a hotel experience, depending on what you're going to do. So yes, these types of tools are transformative for the way we can engage all the various stakeholders.
Imagine instead of having to go build a prototype physically or a model room, that you could take people on this journey and then make the decisions on what to kind of tack left or tack right on, before investing heavily in physical architecture.
Yeah.
It
Probably
definitely
saves you money too. Yeah.
Saves money, saves time, and it also changes the role of the architect and the designer in the process.
Right.
Puts us more as like conductors in the symphony, orchestrating design, brand, technology, all with storytelling as a kind of a foundational aspect.
That makes sense. Now, as someone who's slightly in the creative field, not as creative as the two of you, of course, one of the things I wonder is Gen AI can spit out, so many outputs and all this stuff, but how do you really ensure that human creativity is still at the core of what you do when we see something like that video that was, all AI?
Yeah, it gets back to that role of recognizing the power of the creative in the storytelling process. And the tools in the toolbox are constantly changing. Just out there with kind of the different LLMs that we're looking at, it's constant evolution, but figuring out what's the right tool set to weave together for that particular process, it makes the role of the architect and designer that much more engaged and involved in a way that it's beyond just everyday design. It's thinking about the technological overlay that can create a very efficient and transformative process.
Yeah, Kristen, what about you?
Yeah, and I would say that it makes the process more synchronous. So a traditional architectural design process, there's a lot of we talk, your team goes off behind closed doors, tries to interpret what I've said in a way as your client, and then you come back, and then I might give you feedback on something. And this can take away that back and forth, the inefficiency of it. And if you can kind of co-create, if we have a language model, or the kind of design equivalent of that language model, where Jordan and his team can understand the brand tenets and ethos of a Marriott brand that they're trying to work in, but then we can harness the creativity still of their team to push that in new directions, we're going to get to a place where we have gotten the best, highest impact of all the amazing experience and talent that his team brings to the table, and protecting the brand integrity and kind of pushing that forward with the sort of Marriott language in that process. And we can do it faster, better, smarter, which is a win-win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and imagine that, if like Kristen and I could sit with our respective teams in a room, and that process that she's describing that could take
just
so
happening.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could literally be in a co-create session and changing things and evolving the design ideas, right there in the moment, instead of having to go back and take those weeks to then share an option that may not be received well, only to be changed again.
Could totally change your process.
When Michael was talking last night, you referenced Michael's talk, and he was saying how, you give a prompt, describe a scene, and then have it come to life. If I could say, so if we're working, for instance, on a St. Regis, and I want a little bit more of that like Astor family glam in that, we can dial that up in the moment and put that in as part of what we're talking about and see it come to life and tweak it kind of as we're doing it. So it's,
Right.
Yeah.
And
like I said,
then you
the
take
synchronous nature of it,
It-
it's more fun
much more fun.
and it's more effective.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it saves a lot of time.
And then as you take that, it's not just, oh, here's a great image. It's instantly going to how people move through space and recognizing that even though the technology is rapidly changing, how we work, place matters more so than ever.
Yeah.
So being able to understand how does the technology allow us to explore the full potential of space.
That makes sense. Now, audience, I want to come to you in just 1 second, so queue up any questions you may have for our two wonderful panelists. But first, Kristen, a quick question for you, and this is maybe just the Marriott Bonvoy member in me just dreaming wild.
Yes.
But could there ever be a time in the future where, say, like a guest walks in to their hotel room and it looks different every time, and they could use AI and customize different features and the temperature and the lighting? And is that a future that you see ever happening?
Well, I think absolutely. And I think there's parts of what you just described that are already possible today in terms of interfacing with whether it's like your temperature controls or your TV. But I think, yes, there's the possibility of that to go further and further and further, and is. I love what you say about can the room look different? Can we rethink what the materials are, what the surfaces are? And when you think about a hotel having to kind of reinvent itself every 7 years or so, renovation cycles and whatnot, are there things that we can do with the advancement in technology to make materials relevant longer, to change for you personally, or to change in response to an event like this being held here, that you can brand things, so there can be more like digitally live materials.
Interesting.
I think there's a lot of that. And then it's just the connectivity of everything and the transformation that I mentioned that we're going through with all of our systems are going to be the kind of foundation to enable so much more of that, for us to know you as a guest, for you to be able to interact with us in a kind of more deeply engaged way that we can respond better to you, whether it's as you're dreaming up where you want to go on your Bonvoy vacation or your actual experience and the kind of control you have of your experience in the property. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah. And Jordan, for you, for offices, I was just at the JP Morgan new offices, and they were telling me, when you book a conference room, you can set it to like the temperature you like, and your drinks will be ready and everything, and all with Gen AI. Is that how you're thinking of office design of the future too?
Yeah, I'm glad you experienced that space. That was a great project for us. But it is bringing that hospitality overlay, fusing it into a workplace experience, fusing it into a healthcare experience, even fusing it into the fan experience in sports. But to your point about workplace, it is definitely really thinking about how as a workplace environment works, efficiently, but also, done in a way that benefits the individual and the collective.
Yeah.
So on projects like JP Morgan or projects like the new Under Armour headquarters, it's for thinking about how do the people that are in that environment have the opportunity to think differently about how they work and have choice in the environment every day.
Yeah.
And it also leads to how they interface with that architecture. What's that kind of concierge mentality that makes its way into that digital interface so they're able to customize their workday, and then also understand how to find and connect in with different colleagues throughout a given day.
That makes sense. Now, I see a question out here, and if you could just say your name, title, and company too.
Hi, I'm Francisco Martin-Rea, the CEO of Helios. As you're designing these new spaces, what are the expectations of office workers and guests, and where do you think that'll go over the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah, great question. We're definitely seeing now that there's an expectation level that the bar's been set so high. So whether it's things that Kristen and I are collaborating on for the guest experience and really having a curated experience for you or your family when you come in, and how does the physical architecture have agility worked into it so that they're able to be these touch points that you as an end user or your family or your business colleagues can interact differently throughout the experience of the stay. In the fan experience side, in the sports world, we're seeing that this is having an amazing effect on venues, whether that's arenas or stadiums. For the design of that, recognizing that these take a long time to get built, but if you're going to spend over $1 billion on a new arena, over $2 billion on a new stadium, that you have to think about tomorrow beyond what's being delivered today. So to recognize that as a fan, I want to be able to adjust my game day experience for what's happening this Sunday versus the following Sunday.
And I think one of the things that you're touching on, Jordan, that's so important is how focused people are on their passions, how precious our time and what we choose to do, how we choose to work is. And so responding in the workplace and the hospitality setting to enabling and kind of empowering your ability to follow those passions and to have these have either our hotels or workplaces to be sort of the springboard for that. The other thing that I would say is that the expectations are rising at every level. And so Marriott, obviously, we have hotels from the kind of select service, mid-scale, all the way up through luxury and ultra-luxury. And the bottom is rising, and it keeps pushing everything else up. And it has been an absolute delight to me to see how the design sensibility has evolved and risen just overall, not just in the world of architecture and design, but in everything over the last 10 years more. But for me, I think that means all good things for what we're doing, because people's expectations continue to push us to think more and more thoughtfully, and to push all our partners. I mean, Jordan and I don't do this stuff alone. We work with clients who have to believe in the importance and the power of design to bring their experiences, their brands, their culture to life. And so everyone's rising sensibility around design is pushing everyone in that direction, which I think is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, just to add real quick, there were several mentions about how do we utilize digital twins in different business areas. And for us, being able to use the digital twin to run simulations to look at and explore the different experiential opportunities in a work setting long before that physical architecture is locked into place.
I think it's sorry.
I see.
Just really quick, can I really quickly just add on to that? One of the things that we don't always think about, like we're guests in hotels, but these are also workplaces for people. So when Jordan's talking about like digital twin, when we think about the operational model and what it means to deliver the experience, technology's ability to really stay in that human-focused realm to empower associates to deliver a better experience, to have kind of high-tech enable high-touch, where it's applicable, I think that is where it's also kind of the magic happens.
Excellent. One here.
Oh, that's such a great lead to my question. So there's so many examples of where high tech enables high touch with humans. Are there scenarios where you've made the conscious decision to go low tech to enable high touch, or you found from your research, whether it's market data or you're studying the field, where you're like, actually we could do that, but there's just like super analog thing that like people just want on their vacations or like in their workplaces, and you make that conscious decision to go analog or go low tech?
Great question.
That's a very good question. Yeah. What we find, especially when we get into the simulations, that there's nothing beats the kind of tactile feeling of walking into a space and recognizing the materiality and running your hands on the wall surface, or appreciating the lighting environment in the room. So I do find that there's this kind of increasingly complex but important marriage of kind of the phygital, being able to recognize when the digital gets you to a point where it then says, what, we have to then make sure that this is heading in a right direction. And there's a couple recent examples. I was actually visiting one in Germany a couple of weeks ago where everyone just felt like the simulations were great, but we just had to see it. So there was a mock-up built in Germany of this new, it's going to be a new headquarters environment where we could go in, we could experience the workplace environment, a portion of the building that you could see, feel, touch, and adjust, that then informed how we go back and evolve the digital side of it.
Kristen, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I think this is something that we consciously decide to do every day. In the world of hospitality, we remain convinced that human connection and that human touch is not replaceable. But I do think that technology can allow for more of that. So, for instance, in our St. Regis brand, if you check in as a guest, you have a butler who will assist you with all of your various needs, right? And so that's a moment of high touch. But if you empower that person with technology to know your needs or be able to communicate with you, the technology is going to enable them and you to find sort of the right balance of that engagement, that interaction, that high touch. It's also going to allow them to do their job more efficiently and kind of have access to all the information of things. You want to book something, they can find all that information. And so, and even not even in the luxury setting, because I think it's easy to look at that in the luxury setting to say, that human touch is never going to go away. But even when you go kind of down the chain in the segments, the importance of someone greeting you, of you knowing that there was someone there to assist you, is something that we have found, like, you can't replace that. But we can make the job of that person easier so that they can spend their time and attention directly with you and not on trying to do like 10,000 things to check you in.
I mean, it's a constant reminder that the power of design to elevate the human experience.
Yeah.
Digital enables it, but it's still, there's a responsibility to really look at kind of the spatial marriage of with the technology.
Yeah. I wish we had time for more questions. I'm so sorry, everyone, but I want to do one fast lightning round to you, 20 seconds or less. The top thing you're excited that technology will do to help you in your jobs. Go.
Okay, so I have a dream that we are going to be able to create the sort of design language models that are going to be sort of bespoke to each of our brands and are going to even transform the way we collaborate further, that we can put our people's minds to the highest and best creative use of thinking about that experience and elevating things, as opposed to like, did we satisfy all the standards? Have we met all the code requirements and whatnot, and have all of that taken care of so that we are like really pushing forward on that kind of human experience, guest experience, associate experience.
Love it. And Jordan, 13 seconds. I'm so
13
sorry.
seconds.
Sorry, I
Got
took a few
this?
seconds.
Yeah, I would say, to me, really finding that fusion of elevating the experience for those that we're working with, not just through the design process, but all the way through until something becomes a built reality. So really finding the sync with the construction industry and all the collaborators that enable this process to really be hyper efficient and much more kind of connected and streamlined.
Fabulous. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you, Jordan, for being willing to sit with two Kristens side by side.
Thank you.
We love that.
Thanks.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.